Welcome back to the FixedOps Roundtable. We are back with our panel of A-list superstars. Tully Williams is here from the Nilo Company in Sacramento, California. Shon Kingery with the Kaiser Automotive Group in Wisconsin, where it is still nice and weather is pleasant. And Ed Roberts at Bozard Ford Lincoln in St. Augustine, Florida. We are joined today by Eric Foster, who is the co-founder at DealerVantage. Everybody, welcome to the FixedOps Roundtable. All right, so talking today a little bit about technology and talking even more about data. Eric, give us a little color and some background on what DealerVantage does, specifically what it does with FixedOps as well.
Awesome. So Ted, thanks for having me. Totally, Shon, Ed, fantastic to meet everybody. So DealerVantage, we are a first-party data platform, and we provide insights into every vehicle that is registered at a customer's household. Specifically, this is really worthwhile for like servicing operations, particularly conquesting service campaigns, where you're able to identify not just vehicles you sold them, but other vehicles that your customer owns that you did not sell them, that you can get them back into your servicing lanes. That's roughly DealerVantage.
Ed, let's talk about that a little bit from your perspective. I know on the dealer side, you're likely inundated with a lot of data, a lot of information. Why should we look at getting more data on customers?
Well, we want to know that customer. We want to understand them better. We want to know what the other vehicle is in that household. We focus a lot here with process on what that other key is on the key ring when we get those. But in today's time, a lot of those key fobs left in vehicles now, so you don't necessarily see all those, and or they kept separately or whatever else because they're bigger or whatever. And so having something that tells us what else they drive allows us to build them so many things. But one of the key things is it allows us to market to them properly, because we know what the other vehicle is, and that allows us to relate to that and maybe market with something that's similar.
Shon, you were recently on a panel where we talked about different ways to market to customers. What are your thoughts on why we should take a look at that data for our customers?
Well, I think the home run here is these are customers or clients, guests, whatever you want to call them, that have already darkened your door and spent money. These are people that already trust you. And again, Eric talked prior to before we started the session here. You know, one may drive a Dodge and one may drive a Honda, and you may not have both franchises, but they trust you enough to buy the Dodge from you. Why would they not trust you enough to service that Honda? And again, we'll service all makes and models, and I'm going to jump on Ed's, the quick lane model, but we'll service anything. We'll do it. I think somebody that already darkened your door and is already spending money with you as a client, that's not so much of a conquest. It's just regaining and retention.
Yeah. And Tully, when I went out to see you at the Nilo Company just a few months ago, I noticed that between your 10 locations, customers want to do business with Nilo. They want to do business with that name, and that carries a lot of credibility. Talk to us about the data.
I think data is super important, especially when it comes to customer data. One, of course, you have to make sure that you respect their data and you house it properly. But I think what's unique here is what, Shon and Ed have said, is that we get to see the whole family's cars, right? And when you look at a lot of families in our group at the Nilo Company, one might have a Porsche, one might have a BMW, and the other person might have a Honda or a Chevy. And what we want to do is make sure we keep those people in-house, because you know what? We have a 102-year reputation that we want to keep strong. Why can't we work on all those cars? Dealerships are scared to work on non-OEM brands, very scared. And I think that as you build out your quick lanes or whatever you call them, they all have their great acronyms, is that you have to worry about, we'll service anything. It's not that big of a deal.
I think the key issue is that we want to sell tires, we want to sell services, we want to sell the things that people need every day, right? Repairs are becoming less and less because the cars are getting better, but we have to build that trust. And if we have the trust, like the Nilo family, like everybody on this panel has great trust in their community, then what happens when we service their cars? They ended up buying, probably the next car is going to be one from one of our manufacturers, and that's what we want. This is really critical data. I am super excited to hear that someone is actually in this space.
Eric, let me come back to you. How do you get this data, and how can it impact our service departments? Give us some insight on that.
Yeah, so all of our data is actually insurance-based. So one of the big things that we run across is people often lump us into that we're an aggregator of registration data, not to name names, but we're actually getting it directly from an insurance policy. So we're providing value to a customer, we're getting consent to pull it from their insurance policy, but then it's constantly being updated. So we're always seeing what's on there. In terms of how it's used, I think like the best use case that we're consistently seeing, which kind of like threads a line with what Ed, Tully, and Shon were saying, is actually dealerships that have multi-manufacturers under their roof. Because one, they may service everything, but even if they take more of a quick lane approach, you may have, a Ford and a GM, and your Ford store might be absolutely crushing it, but your GM might be like a little bit behind and you're not fully at capacity. But by using our service, you're able to see even the vehicles that you sold a Ford to, maybe they have another GM in that location. So you're able to sort of cross-pollinate all of your customers to drive them back into the store that needs that little uptick in the servicing lanes.
Eric, you're working with a lot of stores. Have you heard of success stories where collecting this, the dealership's own data can really help that dealership?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to kind of like repeat myself a little bit there, but like the biggest success story we have is I literally met with a dealership. Biggest opportunities that we see, I was talking with a dealership that had a Kia, they had a Hyundai, and then a GM location, right? And the Kia and the Hyundai were like crushing it. They were full up until November. Now the GM was saying, they're full until tomorrow morning. So what they were able to leverage with our data was pull the other GMs they found from customers that had bought from the Hyundai as well as the Kia store. And now we work directly with the BDC there to drive outbound conquest campaigns to understand, okay, there's GMs in the household for other locations. We may not need it specifically there, but we need it in that GM location. So let's get those other customers we have a relationship with to be servicing their vehicle at the location that we really need that uptick in.
Let me open this up to the panel, to Tully, to Shon, and to Ed, and of course to Eric as well. Gentlemen, how do people usually feel about us collecting data, okay, in terms of, ensuring how we're going to use it and if they're okay with it?
I'll start. So I think that the issue is that you have to be respectful. If you have a sales department that is attacking all of the data, people will not like you at all, and then they will opt out on everything. Our goal is for everybody to opt in on texting so we can communicate with them. Not really to market them as much, is to communicate. Customers want to be communicated with their cell phone. They don't want to be emailed and they don't want to be called. And I think that the importance of your company saying that this is what we do for your data. Yes, we might email market you or call you. Yes, that we're a business, but we also respect your privacy and we respect your data. And of course, we're never going to sell to anybody.
And I'll take it and go from there. A lot of it's the approach. And like Tully said, a lot of dealers are afraid to step outside their OEM. Well, there's some that we can't step out into. And if we have that information, now we can determine internally, can we do that on that vehicle? And then we can hit them with a more promising approach that, hey, we have confidence that we can do this, rather than say, hey, we service all makes, all models, and then find out that they have something that we can't service and say, sorry, I was just joking. So it helps with our approach as well.
Yeah.
So I'll finish with that. Ted was in my store back in September at the pop-up event, and we got the #1 Ford store, the #1 Chrysler store in Wisconsin, the #2 Chevy store in Wisconsin. And guys, we don't advertise at all. No newspaper, no TV, no radio, nothing. It's all by word of mouth and reputation. It is about reputation. What I like about Eric's model here is, and again, I'll be like Eric, I won't mention that we all know who we're talking about, but there's predictive models out there that the information was always wrong. Like when we say wrong, the wrong was like 25 and 30%. I like the attitude here of being on insurance, because I'm guessing you're not going to insure a vehicle that you don't own. So at least if they're insuring it, you have to assume it's probably in their garage.
Absolutely.
Eric, your thoughts on using the customer's data?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is, and how we tackle all of our business, get consent first. Ask them. Provide something of value to say, hey, we're going to use this, and send it back to your dealership. They may or may not use it for marketing. Make sure that's okay. Like, it all starts there from our perspective, is not getting something where they're switched or surprised. And I think this kind of dovetails a lot with what Tully and Ed said really well, of even when you do, then don't hammer them. Like, be a professional. Run your business in a way that you would like to be treated. And like, getting consent and treating the customer first, I think, are the two biggest things. And that's what we live by as well.
We're speaking today, everybody, with Eric Foster, who's the co-founder of DealerVantage. Tully Williams is with us, Shon Kingery, and Ed Roberts as well. A follow-up, making this personal, Eric, and then I'll take this around the horn. Eric, how have you seen the data used that we collect to make the customer's visit more personal and maybe cater to their specific needs? What are you seeing out there in the marketplace? And then I'm curious what Tully, Ed, and Shon have seen as well.
Yeah, so the two biggest use cases that we see for like our successful clients in terms of making the data more personal and actually talking to a customer is, one, if it's a dealership that likes to really have like a service driven, they're in person, they're having that conversation, we actually present them with a dashboard that says, here's your customer, here's all the other vehicles they have, so that while they're physically in that store, they can start that conversation. They can say, hey, I recognize you have these other ones. How are they? Like, do you need help with these? How are they running? Do you know we service these as well? So that's the first really good use case that we consistently see. And the second one that we see for personalization is we do work a lot with marketing organizations. And that's really having a very specific example of what you can do for that person based off of your current relationship with them is. That was a bit of a mouthful. So saying, hey, you bought a car from us. We'd love for you to service all of your vehicles in us. We can service them even if you did not buy this vehicle from us, and putting together like, hey, a family plan discount, normal stuff that we all see every day, but just personalizing it so it's meant for that individual.
Another way you can personalize it is with loaners. So if I'm servicing the Explorer and I see that the other vehicle in the family is a Tundra, maybe that loaner vehicle becomes an F-150. Because then the spouse is going to want to look at that vehicle and whatever else. So there's elements all across the board that you can make it personal. You can personalize it. Say that second vehicle is a Tesla. Well, maybe I want to put them in a Mach-E or maybe a Lightning. But it's information. Maybe it's a hybrid. Now I can personalize that loaner that they both get connected with, and it introduces the other party to our store as well.
Excellent. Tully and Shon?
I think that when you look at personalized data, we did this is because we have multiple stores, is that most stores are run in silos and we don't talk to each other. And really combining our data now with data like Eric is talking about, when a customer comes in and they come into our BMW store, we can say, thank you for buying the 5 BMWs, the 3 Porsches, and the 4 Acuras, right? Thank you, Mr. Customer, for being a great customer. You spent, we're probably not going to say the number, but an obscene amount of money. This is a good thing to say. Also, when the customer is probably getting a little testy because we did something wrong, when you look at the screen and say, oh my God, they bought 20 cars from us, we better do what's right, right? We all want to do what's right anyways, but sometimes it's really good to see that this customer is a valued customer for our group. Now, if we can bring in other cars into that play, we can say that they bought 20 cars and you have 3 other cars that we haven't seen yet. We'd love to see those. Telling the customer thank you for the cars that they have will then help bring the other cars in.
Yeah, great point, Tully.
It is a great point. Tully made a good point there that dealerships don't talk. As you know, we're stretched all throughout Wisconsin, 3 hours north to 3 hours south. You talk about, and I'm going to take it one step further. If you're not servicing all make and models, because there is still inventory restraints, you have to get into the used car market. It's still a huge part of our business. And by the way, it's where you're making a lot of money. If you're not servicing all make and models, which is what they're giving you, a vehicle you didn't sell, maybe a vehicle you don't sell. Obviously, for those that don't know my group, we don't sell imports. We're the opposite of Tully. All right, we're just strictly domestic. But Lord knows we can service them. We'll certainly try to do it. And with EVs coming out, you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you can to work on whatever you can.
Love it. Eric, if our audience wants to learn more about what you're doing, the good work at DealerVantage, on the FixedOps side, what's the best way for folks to reach out? I see a website scrolling at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, DealerVantage.us. You can reach me at Eric@DealerVantage.us. We will respond quickly.
All right, everybody, want to thank you today. Want to thank the panel, Tully Williams, Ed Roberts, and Shon Kingery. Eric Foster, co-founder of DealerVantage, with us today. Everybody, on behalf of the FixedOps Roundtable, thank you for all you do. And Eric, continued success to you and the team.
Thank you much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
The
you.
A-list panel here today, everybody, at the FixedOps Roundtable.